All right, now I'm going to start illustrating a shoe. So I'm going to create a new file. Actually, let me save this first. Let's say, cool. Press OK to that. File, new. 8.5 by 11. Let's go landscape. Not worry about anything else. All right, same process. File, place, and I'm not going to place page 1. I'm going to place page 2. All right, so your logo came in the opposite direction. Not a big deal. Zoom out a bit. Two ways you can do this. Number one, just move your mouse to the corner and it will turn to the rotation tool. Hold shift and you can do it in increments of 45. And voila. The other way, I'll just go back a step, is if you use the rotate tool. Okay, you can rotate it on a different point. But anyways, I think the easiest way is just to place it and start over again. Page 2. Grab the corners, rotate it holding shift, and voila. Cool. Shoe is pretty big enough, so I'll leave it on that layer as is. Just lock it and add a new layer. And let's see the quality here. The sketch. Okay, it was pretty faint, but generally we get the same idea. Now, I'm going to press Command R to get my rulers. I'm going to click and drag a guideline. Now, obviously your sketch is not perfect, so you're going to make your sketch perfect. Now, I could rotate the paper to make this straight, so I've got a guideline, and I'm going to slightly rotate it so it looks straight. Cool. Happy with that now. All right. Command 0 to zoom out. All right, so when creating shapes for your fabric, guys, obviously I have that logo here, so once you've created your logo, you can just copy it. So try to do logo first, and then you can paste it. Oops. All right, and then you can size it down afterwards. So anyways, you can put that there for now. We can add it out afterwards. Every shape here has to be closed. Okay, so if I'm creating this shape here, for that shape, I'll probably use the rounded rectangle tool. I'll click and drag, and it has rounded corners. And then what you can do is rotate the tool. Shrink it in place. And what I'll do to trim that off, the top section off, is just get my pen tool. I'll just use a black line so you can see it here. And I close that shape. Just to show you, if I hold Shift and select my Pathfinder tool, I can say minus the front, it'll trim that top section off with that shape. And using that rounded corners gives me that nice look. Okay. Doing the other shapes like the midsole, probably use your pen tool. You don't have to imitate your artwork exactly. You can modify it. Maybe in this case, I want to use a rounded rectangle tool. I'll click and drag a rectangle going across. Make that straight. Maybe I can use another rectangle. It's a clever little trick. You can rotate it. Right? And then you can weld those shapes together. And remember, all these points are manipulable. So if I were to get my direct selection tool, I can grab that point, maybe hold shift and grab another point, and I can move it. Okay, so if I click that point there, stretch it out, play with the arms. Okay, maybe that point. So the trick was I kind of used shapes, existing shapes, and just manipulated them. That one there, I'm going to convert to curve, smooth it out, play with the anchor arms, and voila. Okay, I'm not happy with that, so I can say to the computer, pen tool, minus these points, and I'll get rid of them. Then go back to my direct selection. Okay. If you want to make your midsoles thicker, thinner, I'm going to grab this back end, stretch it out a bit, and voila, I got a cool little midsole that I just used from two rectangular shapes and playing with the points. If you choose to use a pen pathway, that's fine too. You know, just click and drag your way around. Now I'm not too worried about this shape here. I'm just going to go in between. I guess a different color. And a little trick here, if you click on a shape, right click on it and say arrange, you could bring shapes to the front or to the back. So I put that pink over top of that green. This green's too high, I can always hide it a bit underneath. Okay, a little boo-boo here, let me fix that. And anyways, you can play with the geometry of the shoe. Now notice, guys, you can put things in front and back. If I wanted to create another shape, actually I'm just going to cheat a bit here. I'm going to hold my Alt Option button, duplicate that shape, and I'm going to rotate it. Make it slightly bigger than the other rectangle. And then I'm going to get my direct selection tool, click a point, drag it down. Now obviously I picked the most disgustingest colors ever, but you get the gist of it. Color you can do afterwards, it's easy to pick. Now I want that shape on top, arrange, bring to the front. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to show you stitches very quickly. Stitches are pretty fun. And also, if you find your geometry, like maybe I find this part of my shoe too thick, you can always grab your direct selection tool. Actually, probably my lasso tool will be best for this. Select these anchor points, and then you can always bring them down all in the same shot. So if you find that the geometry is too high or too low, you can bring them up. That's how the lasso tool works when selecting anchor points. Okay. Grabbing the logo, slapping it there, making it hot green, bringing it to the front. Cool. Anyways, the stitches. Say I wanted a stitch mark, say along the edge of this part of the material. Easiest way to do this is grab a pen tool. You can use a line tool as well or pencil tool. They all create vector paths. Essentially, you click and make your line. And then you go to stroke. Now, you got to click show options. That's big because you get to see these other things. And what you want to do is create a dashed line. Now, depending on the distance between, you just pick and choose how tight you want your gap in between. If you want your, I'm going to zoom in here, you can see this. They're pretty straight, hard edged. If I make them rounded, they can look like rounded stitches. Okay. And that's how you create a stitch line. Here's a more advanced way of doing it. This might confuse you, but you can press pause and play here. You grab the shape you want. Go Object, Path, and Offset Path. Just hold that there for a second. And what it's going to do is create the same shape but offset it a few inches, centimeters. Okay. Now I'm going to go minus. I'm going to bring this in. I'll go minus 0.1. It depends on how big your shoe is. So that's going in 0.1. I could push, type in 0.5, press preview, see how that looks. Looks nice and tight. And what that's done, it's offset and created another shape inside. And to show you this, I've created a nice line based on my shape. Well, guess what I'm going to do? Click dash line, and voila, I have a very nice stitch mark that went around the whole shoe. Okay. If you want to do double stitch, just duplicate that process. Go back into Object, Path, offset the path. Let's preview that, and voila, it created the two shapes. So I have a double stitch. Now you're probably wondering, well, what if you don't want stitch on the bottom part? Well, you want to break that line apart. Okay. Or you can hide it or erase it. This is how I would erase a line. I would create another pen path right there, and another pen path at the other end, just slightly before the other point, and grab my direct selection tool, select that last point, and you press delete, it deletes that segment. Okay, and you can delete that segment as well, and it remains that. So I'll do the same for this line. Add a point right before the end, or the beginning, depending on how you see it. And add a point there, direct selection tool. Press delete. Now your stitches look like they're going into the shoe, and that's the more professional look you want to have. Stitches don't follow through, click that point, drag it, and extend it. So use your direct selection tool to manipulate the anchor points to make your artwork look professional. Anyways, there's my, I guess, what do you call this? Deck slipper? Sandal, okay. Sandal with some stitch marks there. Obviously, the more detail you put, the more realistic your shoe looks. Okay, the color scheme was obviously disgusting, but you get the gist of it. Save your work, and voila.